How and why bushcraft is important to the partisan effort. Bushcraft is not all carving bowls and spoons and sitting out in the woods in a circle smoking a peace pipe. That's part of it. That can be, and that is bushcraft, but that is the part of bushcraft that is much less relevant to our use. It is a very real and applicable set of skills that we need to increase our effectiveness and our lethality in the field. The definition of bushcraft is a set of practical skills used to live sustainably in nature with minimal equipment. That is exactly the type of skill set one would need to wage a partisan war long term. The majority of war is not actively firing your weapon. It is merely existing in the current framework of your situation. To exist, we need to be able to take care of ourselves both on a personal level and on a group level. In World War II, the American infantrymen averaged 10 days of active combat per year. That left 355 days to just merely exist. The point is that we need to have the skill set to be able to exist long term so that we can actually fight when the time comes. So if something has occurred that has caused us to start actively carrying around weapons, then that means that our normal daily life has changed. And with that, the way we meet our daily needs has also changed. That means that you should not expect to procure food, water, hardware supplies, or hygiene supplies as usual. This is where bushcraft comes into play. Being able to supplement your current supplies with nature will greatly extend your ability to stay in the field and to accomplish your tasks. Things like lighters, shower wipes, foot powder, food, these are all consumable things that will eventually run out. Knowing how to meet those needs, even when your consumable items are gone, will make you a significantly more fearsome foe to your opponent, because the tactic of simply waiting you out or waiting for your supplies to be exhausted is taken away from them. Meaning that if they want to defeat you, they will have to actively seek you out and engage you, which comes with risk to them. Some practical examples of bushcraft in our context would be rendering raccoon lard. That's something that you could use to oil your weapons and tools in place of gun oil or lube when those things do run out. Another would be using bushcraft construction techniques to build booby traps or elaborately concealed shelters. The list goes on. Bushcraft and survival skills overlap quite a bit, and kind of wherever you want to draw that distinction is unimportant. What's important is just having the skills. So I'm going to share with you guys right now some practical skills that could be applied to our context. First thing I'm going to show you guys is how to deal with rust and how to de-rust your tools and equipment and keep it clean. If you're going to be outdoors operating for a long time, you're going to deal with all sorts of weather conditions. Rain, snow, humidity, all kinds of things that are going to cause water to get on your weapons and your tools and condensation, and it's going to cause rust. So knowing how to deal with that and keep your stuff operational is important. This is a large white oak that has fallen, and you can use the bark off of white oak trees and some other trees to make a de-rusting agent that actually works really well. I'm going to show you guys how to make that, but it doesn't have to be a living tree or fresh bark. This tree's been down for many years, and the bark still contains enough tannins for this to be viable. So all you need to make this is something to boil water in and then something to process bark with. That could be a knife or a small hatchet like this. All right, so all you're gonna do is gather some of this bark, and you're gonna process it down, chop it up into small pieces. Once you get all that bark processed down, you're just gonna put it in your pot. The actual recipe for this is 4 ounces of bark to 1 gallon of water. You should be able to measure out your water based on the containers that you have, but if you don't have a way to weigh out the bark, then just do P for plenty, because adding more than 4 ounces of bark per 1 gallon of water is not going to hurt anything. Once you got your bark chopped up and put in your container, you're going to fill it to the top with water. The last step is to put this over a fire and let it boil for a while. Optimally, you would want to boil this for 3 hours to get the most amount of tannins leached out of that bark. But in a pot this small, if you were to boil this for 3 hours, there would be no water left. So with something with the size about like this, I would boil about halfway down and then call that good. So you can see how that water is starting to turn brown. That's the boiling process pulling out all those tannins from that white oak bark into the water. Point of note, tanning as in tanned leather comes from the German word tanne, which translates to oak. All right, I've got this boil about halfway down now. I'm going to show you how brown it is. So all that brown is that tannic acid that's been pulled out of that bark into this water, and that's what we're looking for. At this point, you could strain this through just a piece of clothing or something into another container if you had it. You don't have to, but it makes things a little cleaner. And at this point, all you have to do is drop anything metal in here. The little sling swivels on my rifle, sometimes I have to take those off and drop them in this solution. anything metal. If you had a bigger container, you can put knives or whatever else in here, anything metal. I make a lot of this each year to do my traps in before trapping season. I do this in like a 6-gallon container and just stuff all my traps in there, leave it for a couple days, and they come out completely clean. This will eat the rust right off anything. So this is a really good, simple thing that we can make out in the field to help maintain our tools in this environment. Another use that this decoction has is as a body wash. Like I said before, things like shower wipes and anything you bring with you to keep yourself clean, that stuff is going to eventually run out. So if you want to be out here for longer and be able to keep yourself functional for a longer period of time, you're going to need to know how to keep yourself clean, to stave off infections and bacteria and all that other stuff. And this works great for that. You can just take your shamog or a piece of clothing or a towel or anything and dip in this and just wipe yourself down. It does a really good job of removing bacteria and getting you clean. Now, if you had like really hard caked on dirt or something, you need something a little more aggressive, then you can just take some charcoal from the fire that you use to make this and grind that charcoal up, put it in here, and then that's going to give you an abrasive in a body wash that you can really scrub to clean yourself. The third use for this, along those same lines, is as a mouthwash. Any mouth problems out in the wild is going to cause you just an enormous amount of misery. But you can use this as a really effective mouthwash to clean out any bacteria in your mouth. It's going to taste really bad, so be aware of that. But the tannic acid also has an astringent property that will tighten up your gums. So it'll help you maintain good dental hygiene as well as keeping your tools clean. Next thing I want to show you guys that's going to hold a lot of importance for our cause as partisans is a little bit of solar navigation. Now, you should absolutely be carrying a compass with you. As partisans, there's a good chance you're going to be going up against a technologically superior foe, at least to some extent. So it's up to you whether you want to carry a GPS and make use of that technology, but you should absolutely have at least one or multiple ways on you to find direction and read your maps. But anything can happen. Compasses do break. I've seen a lot of people lose their compasses. Batteries can die in GPSs, and if you want to long-term, again, be able to stay out here and function, you need to know how to use the sun to find direction. First things first, you need to find your relatively sunny spot that you can do this. Get you a stick, just sharpen the end, and drive it in the ground. All right, so that stick is going to cast a shadow. We see our first point right here. You're going to mark that first point. So I'm just going to put this stick here right dead on that first point right there. This is always going to be west because the sun moves across the sky from east to west, so it's always going to start the shadow west, and as the sun moves, it's going to push that shadow east. So we're going to leave this for a couple minutes. We're going to come back and we're going to see where the shadow has moved. All right, so we've waited a few minutes and we can see our shadow has moved. Here's our next point, right there at the tip of that stick. So we're going to put that stick right there, mark that point. Now, from this point, we can just take a stick and we can draw a line in this sand. All right, so now we can mark this side as west. This side is going to be east, because our first mark is always going to be west. So if we bisect this, and that's going to be, this is north. So that's north, east, south, and west. So now we have our 4 cardinal directions. Now, this is not perfectly accurate. This is going to get you pretty close to where you can orient yourself, but this is not going to be as accurate as a compass. Now that you have a relatively accurate north, south, east, and west compass here, you can take your map, put it on the ground, and line it up with north facing north, and now you can start terrain association and know relatively where you are based on what's around you, what direction you're facing, and you can start using this map to get out or to navigate where you need to be, like I said before, based on terrain association, now that you actually know which way the map is pointing. Now, like I said, this is not perfectly accurate. The longer you actually have to leave that stick in the ground and mark your corners, the more accurate it's going to be. But to show you guys that this is pretty darn accurate and you can use it for navigation, I'm just going to line up my compass here with north facing north. So there we go. So there's the compass north, and here's our sun compass north. East and west, That is pretty darn close. You might be off a couple of degrees, but that is going to get you where you need to go. The last bushcraft technique I want to share with you guys today is how to make rope or cordage out of tree bark. Obviously, rope and cordage are extremely important things. We all carry it with us in our packs, but it's expendable. You save it as much as you can, but eventually it's going to run out. You're going to lose it. It's going to break. You're going to have to cut it for something, and you're going to need more. If you want to function in the field for a long time, you're going to need to know how to make more. So making out of tree bark is a viable technique, but it starts with being able to identify the plant that you want to use. Today, I want to show you guys this tree right here. There are multiple trees and multiple different plants that make really good, really strong cordage, but one that's really prolific in my area is the tulip poplar. So I'm going to show you guys how to identify this tree and then how to use it. So the tulip poplar grows nice and straight. It grows pretty tall too, so you can see how it does not have a lot of bends in it. It's a pretty straight tree. That's the first identifying feature. The next is going to be this bark. It's a grayish bark. It does not have really deep grooves in it. There's another one right there. As they get older, the grooves do get deeper. So there's two things you can look for. Also, they shed their branches as they grow. So as they get tall, they keep the branches at the top, but then they shed them on the tree. So when you look at these trees, this one here and then out in there, they don't have any low branches. It's just a nice straight trunk. Here's what the leaves look like. I've always thought if you kind of turn them upside down, it looks like a chubby little person with short legs. Sometimes this won't be as defined. This will be a little more filled in right here. But yeah, when the leaves are on the trees, this is another good identifying feature. Hard to miss. So I said that they shed their branches as they grow. So if you locate these trees, just look around them, and a lot of times you can find some of their old branches. I found this literally laying right here beside of it. And what we're after is the bark on this thing. And you can see, if I break it, you can see this bark on here. This one's pretty well decayed, but you kind of see how you can peel this bark off. All right, so I've got some of this bark peeled off now, and you can kind of see how it's stringy. See how this is what we're looking for. You can use this for multiple things. Right now I'm going to show you guys how to weave some cordage out of it. I'm going to start by just peeling off multiple sections. Just kind of peeling all some of this stuff away. I don't really want this hard outer bark. I want this softer inner bark. After you've loosened it up a little bit and got some of that hard outer bark off, you're going to twist it a little bit and then flip it over. It's going to be right in the middle, and this is how we're going to start. I'm trying to do this where you guys can see it. This is called a reverse wrap 2-ply cordage. All right, so we've got it kind of flipped over here in the middle. Now this hand, I'm going to turn this string right here away from me. And I'm going to wrap it, start twisting it away from me. Then I'm going to reach, and I'm going to grab this second one, this one over here, with my middle finger on my right hand, between my middle finger and my index finger. I'm going to grab it, and then I'm going to rotate this whole thing and bring that one that was on the bottom up to the top. Now they switch sides. Now I'm going to keep doing the same thing. I'm going to turn that one, reach under, grab that, pull it back over on top. You can see how pretty quick this starts to become a piece of usable rope. You could really take your time with this if you wanted to make this nice and pretty, but a lot of times you just need something functional really quickly. I have weaved backpack straps out of this that has held my backpack on. You can use this for just general repairs. This could be used for snares, for snaring small animals, or for trip wires that blend into the environment significantly better than anything you could bring out here with you. So there's always a ton of uses for cordage. So you need to be able to know how to manufacture cordage out in the woods if what you have brought with you does eventually run out. Something else you can do with this tulip poplar bark, it is incredible for starting fires. Just pull it off and kind of process it the same way you would if you were going to weave some cordage out of it, and it makes a really nice bird's nest that takes a spark or a flame really well. That's going to be it for today. I just wanted to show you guys a couple of bushcraft techniques that have a real world application for our use case to kind of drive home the point that studying and practicing bushcraft isn't a bunch of hippie stuff. It does have application for the partisan use case, which is where I look at it from. So I hope this, like I said, drove home that point to you guys. Maybe get you out in the woods and start studying and practicing this stuff a little bit more. So thanks for staying with me. I'll see you next time.